Chinese motorcycles were never ignored because they lacked features. They were ignored because they couldn't be trusted, built to sell, rarely to last. Brands like Honda and Yamaha owned that trust for decades. Now that advantage is under pressure. Chinese quality is rising, engineering is tightening, and for the first time, these machines are being taken seriously. In this video, we're breaking down which Chinese motorcycles are actually scary good, which ones are still catching up, and what that means before you make your next move. Because not long ago, trusting a Chinese motorcycle didn't just seem unlikely. It felt almost unthinkable, and understanding why that was is where this story really begins. To understand what's happening now, you have to look directly at what Chinese motorcycles once represented, without softening it. The skepticism wasn't imagined, it was earned. In the early 2000s, these machines entered global markets with one clear strength: low cost. But that advantage came with trade-offs riders could not ignore. Build quality felt inconsistent. Metals seemed thin. Fasteners loosened. Electrical systems, arguably the most critical layer, became a recurring source of frustration. Wiring faults, weak charging systems, sensors that failed without warning. And then came the bigger issue: reliability. On paper, the engines looked capable. In practice, outcomes varied wildly. One bike might run without trouble. Another, built the same way, could begin failing within months. That unpredictability became the real problem, because riders do not just buy motorcycles, they depend on them. When consistency disappears, ownership turns into risk. Savings lose meaning when downtime increases. Limited dealer networks and hard-to-source parts only amplified that uncertainty. Then there was the question of origin. Many early designs felt heavily borrowed, not refined, not evolved, replicated. And that raised a deeper concern. If development relies on imitation, how strong is the foundation beneath it? Over time, that perception settled into something hard to shake. Affordable but uncertain, appealing but unproven. And once that narrative takes hold, it spreads. Riders share it, mechanics reinforce it, it becomes memory. That memory defined Chinese motorcycles for years, which is why what happened next feels so unexpected, because that identity did not slowly improve. It shifted, and it shifted faster than anyone was prepared for. If you're the kind of rider who actually wants the best value, not just the biggest brand name, hit that like button. That's what tells us to keep breaking down real-world motorcycle decisions instead of repeating the same old brand loyalty talk. What makes this shift impossible to ignore is not that change happened, it's the speed of it. For years, the narrative felt fixed. Expectations were low, trust was limited. And then within a surprisingly short window, that baseline began to move. Not subtly, clearly. The first signals appeared in manufacturing. Tolerances tightened, materials improved, small details, panel gaps, switchgear feel, weld quality started to reflect control rather than compromise. These are not cosmetic upgrades. In motorcycles, consistency in production is what separates occasional function from dependable performance. At the same time, design evolved. Earlier machines often felt assembled, borrowed ideas without a clear identity. Newer models began to show cohesion, proportions aligned, ergonomics felt intentional. Even the styling moved away from imitation towards something more confident. But the deeper shift is in purpose. These motorcycles are no longer built just to fill the lowest price tier. They are aimed at global markets where expectations are higher, alternatives are stronger, and failure is far more visible. That changes everything. Because competing globally demands discipline. Engineering must hold up, quality control must tighten, components must perform under scrutiny, not just under ideal conditions. And this is where the transformation becomes difficult to dismiss. Not because one area improved, but because multiple systems advanced at the same time. Manufacturing, design, positioning, all moving together, faster than expected. That kind of alignment is rare, but progress alone does not answer the real question, because improvement can look convincing from a distance. What matters is whether it holds up in the real world, with real riders, real miles, and real expectations. And when you start looking for that proof, a few names rise immediately to the surface. That is where the story turns next. Because if this transformation is real, it leaves evidence, not in marketing, but in markets, machines, and networks that actually reach riders. And when you look closely, a pattern begins to emerge. Consider CF Moto. Not long ago, it sat at the edges of the global conversation. Today, it operates across North America and Europe, with structured distribution and visible dealership presence. That kind of expansion does not survive on price alone. It demands manufacturing consistency, regulatory compliance, and support after the sale. Without those, growth collapses quickly. The fact that it hasn't matters. Then there is Benelli. In the United States, its footprint has grown from scattered availability to something more organized. And this market is not forgiving. Dealers do not commit space to products that cannot move. Riders do not invest, where service confidence is uncertain. A growing network signals something practical. These bikes are being ridden, maintained, and kept on the road. Zontes tells a different story. Instead of leaning on cost, it leans into engineering, feature integration, design precision, a shift away from simply being affordable toward being competitive on substance. That change in intent is significant. Individually, these signals might seem isolated. Together, they point to something larger: sustained expansion, strengthening networks, products no longer defined by price alone. That is where credibility begins to form. But growth does not define a market. The companies behind it do. And understanding where this shift leads means looking directly at the names driving it. So after seeing how fast brands like CF Moto and Benelli have grown, have you actually seen one on the road near you yet? Or better, have you ridden one? Tell me directly in the comments, because real rider experience is the only thing that separates hype from reality here. And at this point, the conversation stops being theoretical, because this shift is not driven by an abstract industry. It is pushed forward by a specific group of manufacturers, each with a different foundation, strategy, and level of credibility. Start with CF Moto. Based in Hangzhou, it has built its presence in the United States through a steadily expanding dealer network. Not explosive growth, controlled, deliberate, and that matters. Its motorcycles show a level of refinement that moves beyond entry-level expectations, placing it closer to established competitors than many expected. Then there is Benelli, originally Italian, now operating under Chinese ownership. It carries a legacy that complicates how it is judged. Its dealer presence across the United States has grown gradually, and that growth reflects something practical. These motorcycles are moving through real showrooms, not just appearing online. Its reputation sits between history and execution, shaped as much by its past as its current production. Zontes takes a different path. Fully developed and manufactured in China, it approaches the market with a focus on engineering detail and integrated technology. Its timeline is shorter, but its intent is clear. It is not trying to follow, it is trying to differentiate. Then comes Loncin. Less visible to riders, but deeply embedded in manufacturing. Its role extends beyond its own branding, supplying engines and components through international partnerships. Its strength is industrial, not promotional. Closely tied to that is Voge. Positioned as a more refined extension, it represents an effort to move upward toward premium expectations rather than budget identity. Its reputation is still forming, but its direction is unmistakable. Together, these names define the current landscape, but they do not carry equal weight. Because within this group, one stands apart, not for how fast it grew, but for how seriously it is now being taken, and because of the way it is expanding. CF Moto is, at its core, a Chinese manufacturer. Its production is rooted in large-scale facilities with control over engines, chassis, and final assembly. But what separates it is intent. This was never a company designed to stay local. From early on, its direction was outward, built for export, structured for global markets, and aligned with higher expectations. Its presence in the United States reflects that approach. Over the past decade, it has moved from relative obscurity to a brand with a visible and growing dealer network, not through sudden attention, but through steady placement across multiple segments: street, adventure, practical, accessible machines supported by real distribution. That kind of expansion does not hold without consistency behind it. But growth alone is not what changes perception. The real shift comes from its relationship with KTM. This is not surface-level collaboration, it is structural. Shared production, joint development, technology exchange that runs deeper than branding. CF Moto manufactures select KTM models for global markets, while also integrating KTM-derived engineering into its own platforms. That changes the conversation, because engineering cannot be scaled through imitation alone. It requires process, validation, repetition under pressure. Through this partnership, CF Moto operates inside a system that already demands those standards, and the effects are measurable. Manufacturing processes tighten, development becomes more disciplined, quality control evolves under external expectation. There is accountability built into the structure. For a skeptical rider, that matters. It does not eliminate risk, it does not guarantee long-term durability, but it introduces something most emerging brands do not have: a direct connection to proven engineering practice. That is why CF Moto is often viewed differently, not simply as a fast-growing company, but as a manufacturer developing within an established framework. And that places it in a category of its own. Because not every brand has chosen that path. Some rely on legacy, others push in a completely different direction, and that contrast becomes impossible to ignore once you look at the next group more closely. Now, when it comes to partnerships like CF Moto working with KTM, things get serious. So I want to hear from you. Do you trust a bike more when it shares engineering with an established brand? Drop your answer in the comments, because this is exactly where opinions start dividing riders. Not every manufacturer coming out of China is chasing the same destination. And once you look closely, the gap between them isn't small, it is structural. Take Benelli. It enters this conversation with something most others simply don't have: history that riders already understand. Long before Chinese ownership, Benelli had already built its identity in Europe. Today, production runs through CF Moto, but that original DNA still shapes how the brand is received. It feels familiar, it feels established. And for many riders, that lowers the psychological barrier before they even touch the bike. In the United States, that advantage shows up in a very practical way. You see the bikes. Dealerships are easier to find. Inventory is actually there when you walk in. That kind of visibility matters more than spec sheets, because trust doesn't start with horsepower, it starts with access. But that same approach comes with a trade-off. Benelli isn't trying to redefine the category, it's trying to occupy it. Its motorcycles are built to be usable, predictable, and easy to live with. The result is a brand that grows steadily, earns acceptance, and becomes part of the landscape, without ever forcing the industry to react. Now step over to Zontes, and the tone shifts immediately. There's no legacy to lean on, no history to soften the introduction. So instead of asking riders to trust the name, Zontes tries to impress them with the machine itself. Its strategy is rooted in detail. Electronics are integrated aggressively. Design choices feel deliberate, sometimes even bold. Features show up where you don't expect them, especially at this price level. It doesn't ease its way into the market, it pushes its way in. That creates attention, but it also creates hesitation, because innovation is easy to notice early and much harder to prove over time. So the divide becomes clear. Benelli builds confidence by feeling known. Zontes builds intrigue by feeling new. Both are moving forward, but only one of them is quietly testing how far this shift can actually go and whether riders are ready to follow it all the way. Because not every force shaping this shift is visible in a showroom. Some of it operates far deeper, inside factories, supply chains, and production lines most riders never see. And that is exactly where Loncin starts to matter. Loncin isn't built around image. It doesn't rely on styling or storytelling to make its case. Its strength comes from something far less visible and far more demanding: industrial execution at scale. Because Loncin doesn't just build for itself. Its long-standing relationship with BMW Motorrad places it inside one of the strictest manufacturing environments in the industry. And that changes everything. When you're producing engines or major components for a brand like BMW, expectations are not flexible. Tolerances are tight. Quality control is relentless. Consistency isn't optional, it is the baseline. That kind of trust isn't handed out. It's earned through repetition, precision, and the ability to deliver the same result over and over again without deviation. This is where Loncin becomes significant, not because riders recognize the name, but because the industry does. It operates as part of the structural backbone, where reliability is measured long before a motorcycle ever reaches a customer. Quietly, consistently, it proves that Chinese manufacturing is no longer just about cost, it's about control. But manufacturing strength alone doesn't change perception. That's where Voge enters the picture. Voge is Loncin stepping forward, out of the background and into direct comparison. Here, the focus shifts. Fit and finish improve. Design becomes more intentional. The goal is no longer to support another brand, but to stand beside one. It's a different kind of pressure, because now the same company trusted behind the scenes is asking to be judged in plain sight. And that raises a more serious question. If the foundation is already proven, what happens when that capability is finally aimed at the rider? The easiest way to understand how real this shift has become is to stop speaking in theory and put two machines directly against each other. On one side sits the CF Moto 700 CLX, a clear expression of China's new direction. On the other, the Honda CB 650R, a product of decades of refinement from Honda. And the first difference doesn't hide. It hits immediately: price. the CF Moto arrives noticeably lower, not marginally, enough to make an experienced buyer stop and think. You're looking at modern styling, strong equipment, and a competitive platform, all for less money. On the surface, it feels like a calculation that shouldn't work as well as it does. But motorcycles aren't decisions made on spec sheets alone. Fire them up, and the personalities begin to separate. The CF Moto's parallel twin delivers torque in a way that feels immediate and usable. Around town, it's responsive without being aggressive. Out on the highway, it holds its own comfortably. It's built to be approachable, easy to understand, easy to enjoy. The Honda answers differently. Its inline four doesn't rush. It builds, smoothly, predictably. As revs climb, the engine reveals a level of polish that only comes from long-term development. It's not about hitting hard, it's about delivering power cleanly, without friction, without surprises. Then you notice the details. The CF Moto looks good, better than many expect. Fit and finish are solid, materials feel deliberate, and nothing immediately feels compromised. On its own, it stands confidently, but next to the Honda, the difference becomes quieter and more revealing. Controls feel more precise. Transitions are smoother. The entire machine carries a sense of cohesion that isn't obvious at first glance, but becomes harder to ignore over time. Out on the road, that separation sharpens. The CF Moto delivers genuine value. It engages, it performs, it proves a point. The Honda refines the experience. Every input feels measured. Every response feels settled. So the conclusion isn't simple, it's layered. One challenges expectations, the other reinforces them. And that tension leads somewhere more demanding, because not every motorcycle is judged in short rides. Some are judged over distance, over time, and under pressure. And if the first comparison leaned on performance and refinement, this one changes the rules entirely. Because once you step into adventure touring, the priorities shift. It's no longer about how a motorcycle feels for an hour. It's about how it holds up after days on the road. Now the question becomes simpler and more demanding. Which one would you actually trust to carry you across distance? On one side sits the Benelli 𝐑𝐈𝐃 502, on the other the Kawasaki versus 650 from Kawasaki. And again, the difference begins with price. The Benelli enters lower, clearly lower. For riders stepping into touring, that matters. You're getting upright ergonomics, wind protection, and luggage-ready capability without stretching the budget. It opens the door. Wider, plain and simple. And once you're on it, the 𝐑𝐈𝐃 makes a solid first impression. The seat is generous. The riding position feels natural. At highway speeds, it settles in comfortably. It's built for steady miles, not sharp bursts. But then the weight shows up. At slower speeds, in tight turns, or when the surface gets loose, the mass becomes noticeable. It's not unmanageable, but it demands attention. Now step onto the Kawasaki, and the contrast is immediate. The Versus feels lighter on its feet, not just physically, but dynamically. Its parallel twin responds with more urgency, yet stays smooth across the range. On long highway stretches, vibration is better controlled. In corners, the bike feels composed rather than cautious. That difference adds up over time. Build quality follows the same pattern. The Benelli presents well, solid, equipped, convincing at first contact. But the Kawasaki carries a deeper sense of durability. Controls feel tighter, components feel more consistent. Nothing calls attention to itself, and that's exactly the point. Because when you think beyond the first ride into ownership, the gap becomes harder to ignore. The 𝐑𝐈𝐃 makes touring attainable. The Versus makes it predictable, and that distinction matters more the farther you go. Because these comparisons are starting to reveal something, but not completely. The real pattern only becomes clear when the same question is asked in a segment where expectations shift again. If you've ever taken a bike out for a full day, or pushed it into a second, third, or fourth day on the road, you already know how quickly small differences turn into big ones. So I want to hear from you. Have you ridden something like the Benelli 𝐑𝐈𝐃 502 or the Kawasaki versus 650 over real distance? What started to matter more? The comfort, the weight, the engine feel, or just the confidence it gave you by the end of the ride? Drop your experience in the comments. That kind of insight is what actually helps other riders choose the right machine, not just what looks good on day one. As the comparison drops into the entry-level space, the priorities shift again. This is no longer about chasing performance or covering endless miles. It becomes something more personal, confidence, control, and getting that first decision right. Because for a new rider, the motorcycle isn't just transportation. It sets the tone for everything that follows. On one side, the Zontes 350T arrives with a very specific approach. Give more, visibly more, for less money. And it shows immediately. The feature list stands out. Keyless ignition, a full digital display, multiple riding modes, components that look like they belong in a higher category. For someone walking into a dealership for the first time, that kind of presentation carries weight. It feels modern, it feels advanced, it feels like a smart deal. Out on the road, it reinforces that impression. The ergonomics are relaxed, the controls are easy to understand, the overall experience is approachable. It doesn't intimidate, it invites. Then you step onto the Yamaha MT-03 from Yamaha, and the conversation takes a quieter turn. Because instead of adding more, it refines what's already there. The engine responds smoothly, without sharp edges. Power builds in a way that feels predictable, especially for someone still learning throttle control. Nothing surprises you, and for a new rider, that consistency matters more than extra features. That same feeling carries through the rest of the bike. Fit and finish feel tighter, controls operate with more precision, and over time, that consistency turns into something far more valuable: trust. Because entry-level ownership isn't about the first impression, it's about what happens after months of riding, when the novelty fades and reliability becomes the priority. So the contrast becomes clear. One draws you in with what it offers up front, the other holds you with what it delivers over time. That comparison highlights how Chinese motorcycles are gaining ground, where expectations are lower and value matters most. But the real pressure builds when the segment becomes more demanding, where performance, durability, and long-distance capability all collide. And that is exactly where the next step forward takes us. By the time we step into the midweight adventure class, the tone changes again. This isn't entry-level anymore, and it's not casual touring either. This is where riders start asking harder questions about distance, durability, and whether a machine can handle real use without falling apart. This is where reputations get tested. On one side sits the CF Moto 800 MT, on the other, the Suzuki V-Strom 800 from Suzuki. And once again, the first signal comes from price. The CF Moto undercuts the segment in a way that's hard to ignore. But unlike earlier examples, it doesn't feel like a budget entry. The equipment is there: adjustable suspension, rider aids, touring-ready ergonomics. It's clearly aimed at the same rider, not a step below. Out on the road, that intent holds up. The engine delivers usable, controlled power across a wide range. It feels composed, capable, and far more mature than expectations might suggest. At this point, calling it a compromise doesn't really fit anymore. But this is where the comparison sharpens. Because in this category, performance is only the starting point. What matters is how that performance survives time, miles, and stress. The Suzuki answers with experience. The V-Strom doesn't need to prove what it is. It demonstrates it through consistency. Throttle response feels settled. Suspension behavior is predictable. Every part of the bike works together in a way that feels resolved, not experimental. That same pattern carries into build quality. The CF Moto impresses, no question. But the Suzuki still holds an advantage where it matters most over the long haul: durability under real conditions. And that leads to the real dividing line. One offers capability that challenges expectations. The other offers confidence that removes doubt. This isn't a clear win, it's a narrowing gap. But in a segment defined by endurance, that final margin still matters. Because after seeing these matchups play out across completely different categories, the pattern isn't subtle anymore, it's consistent. And consistency is what turns isolated examples into something much larger. Because it doesn't matter where you look: naked bikes, entry-level machines, or full-scale adventure platforms, the same strengths and limitations keep surfacing. And when that repetition holds across the board, it signals a structural shift, not a temporary trend. On one side, the advantages coming out of China are direct and hard to dismiss. Price leads that conversation across every segment. The gap is real, and in many cases, large enough to change a decision before the engine is even started. For riders watching their budget, that difference isn't theoretical, it's immediate. Then there's equipment. Chinese motorcycles consistently arrive with more visible features, modern displays, multiple ride modes, sharper styling, and components that feel closer to premium categories. The appeal is instant. You see it, you feel it. And for many buyers, that first impression carries weight. But once you move beyond the showroom, the balance shifts. Build quality is where Honda, Yamaha, Kawasaki, and Suzuki still hold ground. Not always in obvious ways, but in the consistency of materials, the precision of assembly, and the way the motorcycle ages with use. It's a difference that reveals itself slowly, but reliably. And that leads into reliability itself. Because reliability isn't proven in the first few months. It's proven over years of riding, across changing conditions, and under real stress. That kind of history still belongs to Japan. Support follows the same pattern. Dealer networks are deeper. Parts availability is more predictable. When something goes wrong, and eventually something always does, that support becomes part of the ownership experience. Then there's resale value. What a motorcycle holds over time still reflects trust, and that trust remains stronger on the Japanese side. So the divide becomes clear. China wins the entry point. Price, features, immediate impact. Japan controls the long game, consistency, support, and lasting value. And that split does more than define motorcycles. It creates pressure. Because when value rises this quickly, the rest of the industry doesn't stay still, and the response to that pressure is already taking shape. For manufacturers like Honda, Yamaha, Kawasaki, and Suzuki, this is no longer distant competition. It is direct pressure. One of the first signals appears in pricing. Not dramatic cuts, but subtle adjustments. More aggressive positioning in key segments. Enough to show that the gap Chinese brands are targeting is being taken seriously. There is also a renewed focus on accessibility. Entry-level and mid-range machines are receiving more attention, stronger value, clearer positioning, fewer compromises. Because that is exactly where the pressure is building fastest. Even production strategy is evolving. Manufacturing is becoming more flexible, more globally distributed, more conscious of cost without sacrificing identity. The goal is no longer just to lead, but to remain reachable. And still, one factor defines everything: reliability. At around 10,000 miles, many modern Chinese motorcycles show clear progress. Performance holds. Major issues remain limited. For shorter ownership cycles, the improvement is undeniable. At 20,000 miles, the picture begins to diverge. Some machines remain consistent. Others develop minor faults, electrical inconsistencies, premature wear, small but persistent issues. By 30,000 miles, the difference can still appear, not always, but often enough to matter. Because the real issue is not failure, it is variability. The gap is narrowing. In some cases, it is closer than expected, but it is not completely gone. And for riders thinking long-term, that distinction still carries weight, which leads to the only question that actually matters when everything is considered. Which side makes more sense for you? And if this made you second-guess what really matters in a motorcycle, the next video is going to take that even further and probably challenge a few assumptions you didn't realize you had. Go ahead, click into it, and keep the momentum going. Subscribe if you want more of this. And if you're backing the channel, membership gets you in early. Hit like before you head out.